They will be here momentarily. So we'll go ahead and start. Good morning. I'm Linda Simmons, and I'm the TriMet Board President. And I want to welcome you all to today's meeting, October 26, 2022. This morning's meeting is available in multiple formats for your convenience, and we're meeting here in person at the University of Oregon campus, downtown Portland. We are also live streaming the meeting on TriMet's YouTube channel for anyone who would like to watch but is unable to be here in person. And I want to express my appreciation for everyone's flexibility. As always, we're going to begin with the public forum. The public forum provides an opportunity for the community to share thoughts, concerns, and feedback about TriMet and our service. We asked anyone who wished to speak to sign up ahead of today's meeting, and we have quite a few people who have signed up, including one person who signed up to speak to us virtually, and that person will be the last person that speaks. So we do ask for those who do speak to limit their comments to 3 minutes, and we're going to begin. And the first person, and I'm going to give two names, so two people will come up at a time. And the first person is Lane Schaefer, and is it Maya Vasquez? Yes, thank you. So first is Lane, and do you pronounce your name Maya? Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, TriMet Board. Thank you for providing space for public comment at this meeting. My name is Lane Schaefer, and I'm a senior at McDaniel High School. Okay. I'm here with Opal PDX to recommend that you reconsider a fair increase for TriMet because of the negative impact it would have on my community and the broader Tri-County area. While Portland Public School students are lucky enough to have access to free transit passes during the school year, there you go. While Portland Public School students are lucky enough to have access to free transit access during the school year, other school districts such as Reynolds, Park Rose, and David Douglas do not. The current fare price is already a burden for young people who need to get to school, doctor's appointments, extracurriculars, and employment. I relied on transit to get to school for 5 years, and it was clear then that students were struggling to pay the fares. In the wake of COVID-19, the last thing people need is an increase in fares. For a working adult, $1.25 may not seem significant, but it adds up for a young person and their family. Additionally, as we work to bring ridership back to its pre-COVID levels, a fare hike is not the right decision. We should be incentivizing people to ride transit, not driving them away with increased fares that further impede their ability to ride transit. Increasing fares would also not align with Portland's climate goals of reducing carbon emissions and getting more people to utilize mass transit. We want people out of cars and onto the bus, MAX, and streetcar. Why would we increase fares and give them one more reason to stay in cars? I would implore you to consider every possible funding stream before proposing an increase in fares. This would be regressive and discourage people from riding transit, as well as increasing barriers for low-income folks, especially young people. I understand the difficulties of balancing a budget with competing interests, but an increase in fares is not the right answer. We should be working towards a fareless system, step by step. The high school summer pass pilot program was one step forward, and we should continue to improve upon that by reducing fares, not increasing them. Just because there may not be comparable transit agencies with free systems doesn't mean we can't lead the way and work towards a fareless system that is efficient, equitable, and environmentally conscious. Thank you for your time and considering the impacts of increasing fares on our most vulnerable populations.
Thank you, Lane. Maya?
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya, and I'm community organizer with Bus Riders Unite at Opal Environmental Justice Oregon, and I want to echo the sentiments of Lane, my colleague here. So I was disappointed and very concerned to hear that TriMet had been having conversations about raising fares in the coming year, and that these conversations have started without any community input or much transparency at all. It's my biggest hope that TriMet will do right by the communities that it serves and not consider raising fares until every other possible alternative has been explored. And that any conversations involving fares have an open space for comment and engagement from riders themselves. Additionally, as a person who serves on the Transit Equity and Advisory Committee, I would really hope to see the implementation of a fairless research subcommittee to explore pathways to subsidizing fare, something that our communities have been asking for a long time. And I think that that's a much bigger first step that needs to happen as soon as possible before we even consider raising fares. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Next is Lee is it Helfin and Tristan Isaac. Good morning.
Good morning. I'll start out if that's okay. Good morning, everyone. So good to see you all. My name is Lee Helfand, and I use they, them pronouns. I am the Executive Director of Opal Environmental Justice Oregon, and I'm here to speak on the fair strategy sessions that have been taking place. I'm extremely disappointed that as soon as the world begins to reopen, this board immediately brings the idea of a fare increase to the forefront. This is an item that should not even be on the table. So many of the people who have sustained our communities throughout this pandemic are still struggling as inflation rises and we continue to face ongoing public health crises, like the fires that have raged recently. Transit-dependent folks, many of whom are frontline workers and have been called heroes over the past few years, now must face the reality that their transit leaders are considering putting their livelihoods at stake with a fare increase. The communities Opal represents through bus rider organizing, BIPOC communities, low-income communities, youth and elders, folks with disabilities, and so many transit-dependent folks will be impacted worse by fare increases, which makes it even more concerning that this topic is being explored. This agency has historically enjoyed paying homage to accessibility and equity, but we know that fare increases both decrease accessibility and are an assault on the idea of a truly equitable system. Additionally, several community advocates, myself included, have asked TriMet staff in the TX space for an exploration of fares and opportunities to go fareless to create a vision for a truly accessible transit system. Yet still, we do not have a research committee formed. The process for this important discussion is already concerning for community advocates. No community members have been engaged in this process, yet a request for revenue-generating recommendations has already been called for. We cannot put additional burden on people who are already the most impacted. In the coming months, we expect each of you, as community leaders, to demand that committees get to fully vet this process and these ideas to make formal recommendations to you all, demand a fairless research subcommittee, demand alternative sources of funding be explored, demand extensive and transparent community engagement, and stop any further discussions of a potential fare increase. We will be here at every meeting, and we will be on the buses talking to community members about how this leadership body has actively explored taking their hard-earned money out of their pockets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning to the TriMet Board of Directors. My name is Tristan. I use he, him pronouns. I am on the steering committee of Bus Riders Unite, and I'm also the vice chair of the Opal Board of Directors. In honor of Halloween, I'd like to dedicate my testimony today to something that scares me. Indeed, it should scare everybody in this room. What scares me is when a public agency that provides an essential service contemplates hiking passenger fares on the eve of what is likely to be a historic recession and in an era of avaricious landlords raising rents and inflation driven by corporate greed. Workers are already facing numerous burdens, and a fare hike would only make things worse, increasing costs for low-income families and driving many into further poverty and homelessness. A fare hike is also not in line with our region's climate change goals, as it would drive many people from public transit, which, as we all know, is a key strategy to mitigating climate change, air quality issues, and many, many other factors. Instead of raising fares on its most vulnerable riders, people who rely on transit every day, TriMet should explore alternatives. As a transit district, TriMet has many options for raising additional revenues, such as further taxes on businesses or property taxes. All this is outlined in TriMet's founding legislation. Instead of a fare hike, TriMet should be exploring the possibility of going fareless, which would increase accessibility for many people throughout our region and is more in line with TriMet's stated goals of equity and accessibility. I know that the response to our testimony today will be that TriMet is only talking about raising fares, and that's not it's not set in stone. But for a agency with a record on public involvement as shady as TriMet, we know that talking about can quickly become doing without the proper public outreach. So my call to you today is don't talk about a fare hike. Don't think about a fare hike. Don't even let the thought cross your mind. We need a fareless system, and we need it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Abby Griffin and Lou Church.
There's a chair right in front of you. Yes. Awesome.
Can you sit down?
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abby Griffith, and I am Bus Riders Unite community organizer. And when I heard about TriMet is discussing about increasing fare, it shocked me because we know that people who ride a bus are poor, like low-income person with disability like me, elderly and younger people who cannot afford to own a car, and putting more burden on those people who cannot already pay like $5 a day pass is a struggle for most of us. And TriMet is discussing to increase fare is, I think, is concerning because I feel like a lot of regions and transportation agencies exploring fare-free and the TriMet trying to increase fare is it shouldn't be option for us to get money from our community who can already like pay $5 fare for a day. They should explore more different resources to do that. I want to tell my story about on a bus because I take TriMet bus every day to get around. And couple of months ago in July, Killingsworth on Albina and Killingsworth Street, I was taking number 4 bus. I was going only 2 stops, but my bus pass didn't have a money, and I told driver I will put more money, but I don't have money now, and driver told me too bad, and she tried to kick me off a bus. And my first concern was that I don't want to put driver in risk if any passenger on the bus get angry at driver or something. Something could be quickly escalate. So I pull out my iPhone and paid fare. But at that moment, I was thinking about people who don't have iPhone or Apple Pay to do that, even though I have to pay more than reduced fare for person with disability. I feel like that put me in distress, and it made me think about what if other communities can't pay and do that, and they get kicked off a bus or anything happens to drivers. It's protecting drivers. Fare should be free, not increasing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby. Lee?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? My name is Lou. I'm with Portland State, Portland Gray Panthers and Transit Riders Union. First, I wanted to say that I appreciate Bus Riders Unite for demanding as well as politely requesting review of the proposed fare hike. As an organizer for a while on TriMet issues, particularly with Mary Botkin, an ATU, it's really important to have more transparency, accountability by the agency. I did bring some prepared remarks. I'll try to keep those under 3 minutes. We've done this at City Council quite a bit. They call me Lazarus, but in Espanol, my name is Luis Iglesia, or Lou, L-E-W. I'm coordinator of Portland Gray Panthers, G-R-A-Y. I'm passing to the members of the board here some flyers on TriMet. With 3 minutes and the board's indulgence, I want to talk about transit justice, democracy, and a bit about Portland Gray Panthers. Here are folks and issues Gray Panthers support now, today. Joanne Hardesty for Portland City Council, Tina Kotek for Oregon Governor, Catherine McMullen for Clackamas County Clerk, Sharon Myron for Multnomah County Chair. For ballot measures, the Panthers also support charter reform in Portland now, pass M114 for better gun laws now, punish lawmakers who walk out in Salem, and ERA, eviction representation for all, for May 2023 ballot. On TriMet itself, Roberta Allstott, who I met this morning briefly, in an article in the Oregonian says that TriMet is not a social service agency. If a houseless woman spends 200 days in jail for not paying a $3 fare, too bad. Evidently, that's just the price of living in Trump's neoliberal economy, even in a neoliberal transit agency in Portland, Oregon. Crime, as we know, is also a problem inside and outside buses, Max, and the streetcar. Fix it. At Portland State, between Jason and me, dating to Fred Hansen, we've been to 36 TriMet board meetings, so I'm happy to be here post-pandemic. They call me Lazarus for a reason. Xander, 22, our best transit riders union organizer at Portland State, a double major at Portland State in econ and poli-sci, talks about TriMet this way, quote, "If I'm going to vote my slate to be elected to the TriMet board, I'd vote for Joanne Hardesty, Carmen Rubio, Sharon Gary Smith, Candace Avalos, Duncan Huang, Ashton Simpson, and Con Pham. But I can't vote," Xander's written, "because the TriMet board's appointed, not elected. I could write in the name of that famous slaveholder, Thomas Jefferson, but I can't because there's no ballots. Instead," Xander says, "there's just PR from Bernie Bottomley's evil twin, Roberta Allstott, that TriMet isn't a social service agency, ipso facto." Xander also notes that he's pre-law. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this. My quote in the Oregonian did say TriMet is not a social service agency. That's where it ended. I said nothing about a homeless woman being okay, being cited.
Thank you. The next two individuals who have signed up are Ellie, and Ellie, I can't read your last name. There you are. And Kevin, is it Apopo?
Kevin's not here yet.
Okay, Kevin's not here. Okay. We'll check. There's another person after Ellie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie Gluhusky. I use she, her pronouns. I am the campaign organizer at Opal Environmental Justice, and similar to my colleagues, I'm here to address the recent discussions that have taken place around implementing a fare increase. I'm extremely alarmed by these discussions for a variety of reasons, but I will summarize them briefly. First, it is concerning that these discussions have been held in strategy sessions, which are live streamed but include no option for public comment. And the fact that fares are not included on the board schedule today furthers that lack of community engagement. Increasing fares is a choice that deeply impacts the day-to-day lives of the community that you serve, and it is completely unacceptable that conversations about our livelihoods are taking place without our ability to interject. We deserve to have a seat at the table whenever a discussion around fares is taking place, and we demand transparency in the information sharing process and the timeline of the decision-making process starting today. Second, I recognize that an official fare increase proposal has not yet occurred, but I'm extremely concerned about the language that many of the board members used in the last strategy session, including the board president herself. The fact that the board has even entertained a fare increase as an option demonstrates that TriMet is more concerned about its status as a business over the well-being of the community members that it is tasked with serving. A fare increase would directly impact the lives of our most marginalized community members and those that Opal stands with. A fare increase would have harmful ripple effects that would spread throughout our entire town and would directly harm my personal community and family. A fare increase would only make transit in this town less accessible, and ridership will only decrease if fares are increased. It is time for TriMet to demonstrate that they center care for the community over their business gains by doing the in-depth research and work to examine all other possible funding sources. A fare increase should not be the first and only solution on the table. Finally, what our community is actually asking for is an implementation of a fareless system. I am calling on TriMet to prioritize the creation of a working group to explore how to make the system fareless. This is what it would take for TriMet to truly demonstrate that they prioritize accessibility, climate goals, and well-being of their riders over everything else. As Lee mentioned before, we will be at these board meetings moving forward. We're watching, and we will not stand by as decisions that impact our lives are made for us instead of by us. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have a virtual person commenting today, Stephanie Frederick. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Let's see if Kevin is here yet. No. Okay. So seeing no other individuals signed up to testify, I'll close the public forum and we'll move right into board reports. I'd first like to invite Director Edwards to provide an update from the latest meeting on the Committee on Accessible Transportation that we refer to as CAT. Director Edwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There was the minutes have been submitted, and so I would just like to put emphasis on a portion of those minutes in regard to the CAT report, and that is the issues around Lyft and paratransit. There's a huge safety concern, and there's also a concern about some of the delays that have been experienced by folks that are that have disabilities. And with that, with the days getting shorter and having less sunlight, there's a huge safety concern, and those concerns need to be addressed. I think we need to work with the affiliate that we have with the cab company and try to do something to make sure that these issues are addressed so that we're not putting people in harm's way. Like I say, we're just waiting for an accident to happen, and I'm really concerned about that because folks that are dependent on this transportation service aren't being served appropriately, and I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Thank you, Director Edwards. Does anyone have any questions for Director Edwards? Seeing none, we now move to Vice President Lori Irish Bauman, who has an update on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting today. Director Bauman.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The Finance and Audit Committee met this morning. It was a short agenda, and this will be a short report. We first heard from Ide Bailey, the auditor's report. Later in this meeting, the entire board will be hearing from the auditor, so I'll keep my summary brief. I will say it was a A clean opinion was issued. This is a brand new auditor, has never worked with TriMet before, so it was a lot of work for the staff to get the auditor up to speed, and I just want to congratulate the staff on a positive result and all of the work that went into obtaining this audit report. The second item on the agenda is plans for the November board retreat. The board will be meeting again in a few weeks, and the agenda is still being finalized, and we'll have a full picture on that agenda soon, but the topics will include proposal for fares, proposal for discussion of reducing fare evasion and increasing ridership. And that's the report.
Thank you, Director Bauman. Director Way?
Thank you. I do have 2 questions, if I can ask about it. So I know we'll hear more about the audit presentation, but was there a selection process for choosing the particular auditor or the firm? I'm just unfamiliar with how that was.
And I do know that we could have somebody from staff talk about it, but I know the board several months ago approved the new auditor, and part of the issue was that we'd had the same auditor for 15 years, and it's best practice to have a new auditor come on board. But staff may have more to add on that.
Great, and then thank you. My second question was around the upcoming November board retreat. So just based on what I'm hearing from public comment today and just my own personal comments at the last month's strategy session, will there be time for all of our board members to weigh in on that board agenda and to provide feedback?
Yes, I'll be meeting with each board member over the next couple of days and then following up early November to receive feedback from each board member before the November 9th strategy session.
Thank you. Sorry. And follow up, will there be public comment or space for the public to share anything at that meeting in November, or is it just for the board to discuss topics?
No, it's a board retreat where
Okay.
the board itself is engaging in public conversation about the issues, discussion, deliberation, all of that, but there'll be plenty of time for public comment after that. There won't be any formal action taken at the retreat.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Further clarification on your questions, Director Wade, just for the public's benefit. Each board member provided to me their request for what would be included on the November 9th strategy session, and so that the staff, each board member has provided that input. And so when General Manager Dessou meets with you, he will be talking about how that has been factored into the presentations. Next, moving on, then we have Tara O'Brien, and she's the Senior Government Affairs Coordinator, and she's going to give the update on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee in place of Director Kim, who had a conflict and was unable to be here today. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Simmons and board members. At the September MPAC meeting, there were 3 briefings and discussions. First, a discussion following up on the factors of homelessness, presentations to generate ideas for regional collaboration on winter shelter response. Members shared ideas to partner together with other jurisdictions to improve access to shelter and services, and shared what they're doing to reduce regulatory barriers or increase awareness of resources available for shelter. Second, there was a follow-up presentation on considerations for an urban growth boundary, UGB, exchange to add land to the River Terrace area of Tigard and remove land from another area of the UGB. Metro is evaluating criteria for potential areas to withdraw from the urban growth boundary that are less ready for development. We discussed these potential considerations to narrow the list of exchange candidates. And the Metro COO will make recommendations to advance for public comment. Lastly, MPAC discussed the revised congestion pricing policy under consideration for inclusion in the Regional Transportation Plan, known as the RTP. Metro reviewed the draft RTP policy language with MPAC and explained that the pricing policies are intended to help guide any congestion pricing projects implemented to reflect the region's values and the goals and objectives of the RTP. TriMet has been actively working with Metro to provide feedback on language and priorities for these policy updates. MPAC meets again tonight, and TriMet will be giving a brief presentation on the Forward Together service concept.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're not going to have a report on reimagining public safety today, and so I'm going to move to the last staff report or director report, and it's Director Way, who's going to provide an update on the Transit Equity Advisory Committee.
Good morning, everyone. So at the last TIAC meeting, TriMet staff presented the Forward Together service concept to our TIAC members. Overall, members expressed a lot of excitement over the draft concept. Members noted the appreciation for the plan's intentional focus on equity, and especially serving our low-income areas where there are high ridership needs, and also the appreciation of the reduction to rush hour service. The group also engaged in conversation about the bus service changes and asked questions on just specific strategies to increase ridership, and also just how folks can get around if there are lack of sidewalks in particular areas or neighborhoods. Members also expressed concerns of just how quickly the project is moving. We know there's been several virtual town halls and some in-person engagements that are happening, but they would just really like to know more about just more of the planning to increase capacity on board for vehicles for riders who are also using mobility devices, and just, again, the overall strategy and the plan for increasing ridership and how do we continue to get folks out of their cars to support public transit. And then overall, TIAC members asked how they can continue to show support for this concept moving forward. So I was really glad to hear some of the public comment today around the particular plan. And then we also received an overview of the STIF plan for members of the public. This is the process and components that make up the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget proposal. There were several questions that our members asked. One was around security, specifically around Washington County, in Beaverton, Hillsborough Transit Center, and we know that we are going to be hearing a robust presentation and update today around our safety and security. So hopefully some of those questions will be answered. And then there's some ongoing discussions around the transit center expansion. There were members who expressed interest if there was an option to add public restrooms for riders, especially if they're traveling by transit long distances. Perhaps public restrooms can be used for riders, and it could be activated through a hop card. So just some ideas that came out of TIAC committee. And then the last item the committee covered was the final review of the TIAC draft bylaws. Again, I really want to appreciate some of our TIAC members who are here today, who took additional time out of their lives to come together and form this work group over the summer to look sort of line by line at our current existing bylaw and see areas where that need to be edited or revised. And then there will be a new application. I believe that's already getting sent out for new organizations who are interested in being part of TIAC to join. And then lastly, I have been taking notes during all of the public comment, and as the TIAC board liaison for TriMet, I have noted the continued increase interest in exploring a research committee or a work group with community to do some fair research. And I'm looking at General Manager DeZoo. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in our 101. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Now we'll turn to the General Manager for his monthly report. General Manager DeSue.
Good morning. Good morning, President Simmons, members of the board. Morning to you, staff, and also the public. Thank you all for being here with us today. This morning, we're going to be sharing timely information with you. We're going to talk about our September ridership numbers. We'll provide the results of the annual audit by ID Bailey. And then I will introduce our newest member of the leadership team, our Executive Director of Transportation. So let me start with ridership with you. TriMet has provided close to 4.7 million rides in September. That's up nearly 17% from last year. We continue to average more than 1 million rides per week. And then I want to just take a moment and note a couple of positive points. Our weekly bus ridership grew 14% over last year. Our MAX ridership was up more than 23% over last year, and our West ridership was up more than 27% from 2001. The ridership on our frequent service lines remains strong, as does the weekend ridership. So I want to do a quick focus with you also on the weekend. On bus, weekend ridership has rebounded to 69% of pre-pandemic levels. Our weekend ridership on MAX is even stronger at 71% of pre-pandemic levels as well. So if we just look at ridership on our frequent bus service lines, September ridership was 74% of pre-pandemic levels. So these are bright spots that I'm bringing forward. Our overall September ridership was down nearly 46% compared to our strong pre-COVID September ridership numbers. Next, I would like to welcome our representatives from ID Bailey, if you could come up. They will present the results of our annual audit of internal controls and also financial planning. This morning we have Ahmad Gorebe here with us, and also we have staff with Ahmad to be able to do that. So Ahmad, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is the annual report for the district. This is the annual financial report for the district. The scope of the audit is to ensure that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. Along with that, because you receive federal funding and state funding, you have to go through certain state compliance audits and federal compliance audits as well. The audit starts or is divided into 3 phases. That's how we typically divide it. It's the interim phase, the final phase, and effectively a reporting phase. Interim phase in which we take a look at the compliance and we take a look at the internal controls. It's a lot of work, a lot of interviews with the district staff. Then we wait for management to close the audit, close the financial statements, and we come back afterwards and we confirm the balances. We confirm your cash, confirm your debt, we confirm the material numbers that are reported on the financial statements. And then the last phase is the reporting phase. The district must report in accordance with government accounting standards. They call them GASBs. And we work with the district in ensuring that these financial statements are fairly stated. The work is actually done by management. We come after the fact and we opine on these financial statements. In conclusion, we issue opinions on financial statements as the first statement of the financial statements, whether the district complied with the federal funding requirements and the state funding requirements. We are required to report to you whether we noted any deficiencies in the internal controls. This is something that we look at during the audit, and we are required to let you know whether we encountered any difficulties in the performance of the audit. We are the new auditors for the district. This is our first year. First year is always a lot more work than the subsequent years. There's a lot of things to understand, the financial transactions that are reported. And I'm pleased to let you know that we issued clean opinions on the financial statements, federal compliance, state compliance. We actually had no adjustments to the financial statements, and we encountered no difficulties in the performance of the audit. Management had been very cooperative in giving us the information that we needed. They assisted us in connecting with third parties. As I mentioned, this is a confirmation process, and then we confirm these numbers. So we encountered no difficulties in the performance of the audit. And that's the results of the audit. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad, and thank you, Kara, also for the report. Appreciate it. Also, finally this morning, I would like to introduce Anessa Vitko, if you could come forward. She's our new Executive Director of Transportation. Anessa returns to TriMet from C-Tran, where she served 4.5 years as the Chief Operations Officer. Prior to that, she established her transportation career right here at TriMet. Anessa was a planner and a manager of customer information before she took on the role of Senior Manager of Customer Experience. We are thrilled to have Anessa back on our team, and we're looking forward to her making a positive impact on our transportation team, our service, and our customers. So, Anessa, welcome. I'll turn the mic over to you to say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Sam, President Simmons, Board. Good morning. I'm really excited to be back at TriMet. As Sam mentioned, I started my career here. I was sad to leave, but you have to take opportunities when they come to you, and operations is where my heart is. So I'm very excited to come back and be leading the transportation team here at TriMet, especially with the current leadership that's in place, not only at the board level, but at the executive level under Sam and others that have joined. I'll tell you, it's been a wonderful homecoming so far. I've been welcomed back with balloons and flowers and hugs and a lot of excitement to make really positive changes. So I really do get looking forward to getting to know all of you guys. I'm looking forward to working with you as we look how we can reshape and reimagine our service to our community and how we serve them the best that we can. That I want to rebuild our resiliency and our ridership. As you heard Sam already speak about a little bit, we are on our way, and that's very exciting. And additionally, I really want to look at how we can reinvigorate our workforce. The frontline employees are incredibly close to my heart, and I want to make sure that they're taken care of and they're safe out there on our system. So I'll just quickly say in closing that I've always known TriMet's an incredible organization. My hope was to always come back and work here and serve this community. It is home for me. And I just couldn't be happier to be here and watch us all move together forward. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Inessa. And with that, President Simmons, that concludes my report for this morning.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Next, we turn to the consent agenda. And as a reminder, items that appear on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda contains 3 items: approving of our last meeting's minutes, a resolution directing the reading of all ordinances by title only, and one additional resolution, Resolution 22-10-54, approving the submission of 8 grant applications to the Federal Transit Administration for Fund Year 2023 Federal Formula and Discretion Funds. Before I ask for a motion, does anyone want to remove any of the items from the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the items contained in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, thank you, Director Baumann, and the second is with Director Edwards. If there isn't a comment by any of the board members, I will ask for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now we're going to move to the resolutions, and we have a lot of them today, so get ready. The first resolution for the board to consider today is Resolution 22-10-55, authorizing a contract with Mass Electric Construction Company for the Ruby Junction Mainline Substation Upgrade Project. General Manager Dessou, your comments.
President Simmons, members of the board, this resolution requests board authorization for a sole source contract with Mass Electric Construction. Mass Electric is the original manufacturer of the Ruby Junction mainline station, which went into service back in 1986 with the opening of the East Side Max Blue Line. As such, only Mass Electric can provide the necessary components to upgrade the substation cost effectively. Under the terms of the contract, Mass Electric would upgrade, retrofit, and modernize the substation to improve safety and reliability. The resolution seeks contract authority of $1.6 million plus 10% for potential change orders for a total of $1.76 million. Substation upgrades are included in the annual budgets for our maintenance of way. For diversity, Mass Electric has more than 1,000 employees, nearly 30% of whom identify as minority and 9% as female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Thank you, Director Lewis, for the second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions before we vote? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Since no opposed, a motion carries. Next, today we have Resolution 22-10-56, authorizing a contract with Liberty Electric Incorporated for the Yellow Line Light Rail Substation Feeder Breaker Retrofit Project. General Manager DeSue.
President Simmons, members of the board, again, as with the prior resolution, this resolution also deals with the modernization of our substations that powers the MAX system. In this case, the MAX Yellow Line. It's been 18 years since the Yellow Line was completed, and the substations have reached their end-of-life cycle, requiring upgrades to maintain safety and reliability. This upgrade would cover 6 substations and 1 rail yard. As the original manufacturer no longer offers replacement parts or repair services, TriMet issued an invitation to bid, and Liberty Electric emerged as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The resolution seeks contract authority just over $2 million plus 15% for potential change orders. The amount is included in the annual maintenance of way operating budget. Liberty Electric has 56 employees, about 20% are minorities, and 12.5% are female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, Director. General Manager DeSue. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Bauman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Edwards. It's been moved and seconded. Anyone wish to make a comment? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next, the board will consider Resolution 22-10-57, authorizing a contract with Gillig LLC for the purchase of operator safety panels for TriMet's revenue service bus fleet. General Manager DeSue.
President Simmons, members of the board, this resolution is important to the safety of our operators. We request authorization for a contract with Gillig to update, retrofit, and stabilize the operator safety panels or shields that are installed on our buses. You may recall that TriMet completed the installation of the original safety panels in 2020, and that was due to the pandemic. That was during a time we learned that the panels, which were initially intended to provide a layer of protection against assaults, could also help reduce the transmission of COVID-19. This upgrade will replace the existing retractable plastic panel with a larger heavy-duty version that offers even more security to our operators. The new safety shield covers more area and is more substantial, thus requiring some additional stabilization work to ensure the integrity of the mounting frame in which it is installed. Although Gillig did not manufacture the safety panels, it is an authorized dealer of a company called Aero Global Shields, and there is no other bus company that is more familiar with our fleet than Gillig. Research has shown that there are no other operator safety panel systems that are compatible with those that are in use on our fleet. Therefore, this is a sole source contract The resolution requests $3.2 million to complete upgrades to 657 buses that are used for revenue service, as well as a 10% for potential change orders, which anticipate due to possible supply chain issues and challenges that we're faced with. The amount is included in the adopted capital program budget for FY23. Gillick manufactures its buses in California, where it has a workforce of just under 1,000 people, which is nearly 72% minority and 9% female. My recommendation of approval is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Bauman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Yes. Director Way?
Thank you. Thank you, President Simmons. I do have a question. How would this, I will be a yes vote on this. I believe in operator safety. I believe that, there should be some protection and a barrier for them. But my question is more of the practicality and the usage, and also the customer, our customer experience. So if the public still needs to talk to our bus operator, needs to communicate, and if also someone has a disability, would this be an issue with our riders, or?
So the operator will be able to talk with the customer, so the shield is not going to stop that from taking place, to have those conversations at the fare box. With anyone with a disability, will be able to easily get into the bus from that standpoint. All we're doing here is extending the panel to go a little bit more forward to the windshield of the bus itself. Okay. And one of the major reasons that I want to share with you is we've seen an uptick of people reaching around with coffee and other liquids and dashing it in the face of the driver while they're operating the buses. So what we want to do is bring the shield forward so that it stops that behavior from taking place. And then on the top level of the shield itself, people have reached over the top and dropped liquids down, urine. We've had feces as well. So we want to block that so that that doesn't take place.
Thank you. Thanks. And thank you for sharing those. Those are horrible stories, but I just wanted to make sure that, again, folks still have access to our operator if they need.
Absolutely.
Director Bauman?
It's important to protect operators, and this is, now appears to be the industry standard to have these sorts of shields. So it's important to provide this. The question that I had asked before the meeting was the shields that were installed just a couple of years ago, hundreds of them, what's going to happen to them? And thank you to Roland for telling me that the staff is researching how to repurpose those shields so that they just don't end up in the landfill. Mm-hmm. So, thank you.
Director Lewis.
I have a question on Aero Global. What is their location and what is their diversity breakdown?
I'm going to bring Jeremy Rayfield, and also why don't you come and Jack, Les, why don't you come and join us as well?
Hey, good morning. Les Spittler. I'm the Director of Procurement Supply Chain Management. Good morning, President Simmons, members of the board. Director Lewis, unfortunately, we don't know. We haven't asked the diversity of Aero Global, mainly because they're just the product manufacturer. We can get that information and follow up to you, though, if that's okay.
I do not have that information either.
Okay.
Do we know the location? Are they, because I don't think they're in our state.
They're not in Oregon. They're in Wisconsin.
And also, I just want to say, Director Lewis, is that the installation will happen in California at the Gillick manufacturing plant, not in Wisconsin. with new buses, and then here, with our buses here, we'll do all of the installation here in Portland.
Yeah, Complete Coach Works is going to be the installer on the existing buses here in Portland, and there is some information on them in the resolution on their workforce.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I don't think so. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have Resolution 22-10-58, authorizing a contract with Tempest Technologies, LLC, for audio-visual equipment design, maintenance, and support services. General Manager Dessou.
President Simmons, members of the board, this resolution concerns audio-visual equipment and support services for critical and non-critical functions within our Operations Command Center and our Backup Operations Command Center. So you'll hear me refer to them as OCC and also BOCC, which is the Backup Operations Command Center. These centers monitor vehicle movement across the TriMet system, and it requires around-the-clock support due to the around-the-clock operations that we perform. In addition to the OCC and BOCC, Tempest will provide the AV equipment, design, maintenance, and support at all TriMet facilities, including Center Street Operations Headquarters, our administrative headquarters, the Public Safety Office, and our Ruby Junction facilities, and for all of our garages and offices. TriMet issued a competitive request for proposal for this contract, and our Source Evaluation Committee selected Tempest based on its technical proposal, competitive price, and suitability to TriMet's needs. The contract is for a total of $3.6 million over a 5-year term, and it includes a 10% allowance for potential change orders. However, the total amount of expenditures will be based on goods and services that are actually required during that time. The value of the contract is included in a line item for our IT operating budget for FY23. Taking a look at diversity, Tempest has 42 employees, 7% of the workforce is minority, and 21% is female. Your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Way. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Director Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question in regards to the other bidder, Cochrane, on what their numbers were in regards to diversity on this contract.
Okay. Les, can you come up? Ethan, you may want to come up with him as well.
Good morning. I'm going to be 0 for 2 this morning. Cochrane is a contractor for our facilities maintenance department. They have an on-call electrical contract with us, but we do not collect the information for companies that we're not awarding a contract to. But I can follow up with you because they have another contract with us. So I'm sorry for not being able to answer your question again, but I can get it to you as a follow-up if that's okay.
That's okay at this point in time. But I guess going forward, it'd be nice to know what those numbers were up front.
For everybody that responds?
Yes.
Okay. We can start to include that information going forward.
Thank you.
And manufacturers of products, Director Lewis, so that next time we could have that information for you so that I don't have to fumble up here with a non-answer.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, you two. Next resolution is 22-10-59, authorizing a contract with TransDev Services, Inc. for paratransit eligibility assessment services. General Manager Dessou.
President Simmons, members of the board, as you are aware, we contract with TransDev for Lyft paratransit services. This resolution will allow us to also contract with TransDev for the assessments for those applying to use Lyft. These assessments determine whether individuals under the American with Disabilities Act are eligible. I should note that the pool of companies that can provide these services is extremely limited. In fact, this is the first time in the past 3 solicitations that TriMet has received more than one proposal. The proposals came from the nation's 2 largest firms. TransDev emerged as the higher proposal. The Source Evaluation Committee requested a best and final offer from TransDev and received a price of $7.6 million, which was determined to be fair and reasonable. The contract covers a 5-year term, and the services are included in the Accessible Transportation Program's ATP FY23 budget. TransDev's national workforce includes more than 16,000 people, with 78% minority and 27% female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Baumann. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Way. Does anyone wish to make a comment before we vote? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is Resolution 22-10-60, authorizing a contract with Custom Truck One Sources, Incorporated, for the purchase of a workhorse rail car mover. General Manager Dessou.
President Simmons, members of the board, this resolution seeks authorization for a contract to purchase a workhorse rail car mover, and I'll talk about this in a moment, for our light rail system. This is mission critical and a highly specialized emergency rescue vehicle that can lift or move trains and components and remove vehicles from our MAX right away during an emergency situation. TriMet currently has one of these vehicles, and it's known as a Brent truck. The one that is in use is functional but aging and requires frequent and costly repairs. And I can tell you, over the last year, we've dealt with quite a few repairs and non-starts and emergencies, and it was pretty frustrating to deal with. It barely passed its federal safety inspection this year. And furthermore, the current Brent truck cannot comply with the new state of Oregon environmental regulations requiring modern emissions components in diesel trucks by 2030. It's old with mechanical issues, outdated. Therefore, the resolution seeks an authorization for the purchase of a workhorse rail car mover as a second rescue vehicle to supplement the Brent truck. One would be housed at our Ruby Junction on the east side, and the other will be housed at El Monica on the west side for more of a timely response to incidents, no matter where they occur on our MAX system. Custom Truck is a leading provider of specialty railcar equipment and has a workhorse vehicle available that can be delivered to TriMet within 6 months. This is a sole source contract, requesting $1.1 million for the vehicle, plus a 10% change order related to potential supply chain issues. Custom Truck manufacture vehicles in Kansas City, Missouri. The company has about 2,200 employees, 31% of whom are minorities and 9% are female. Funding is included in the FY 2023 capital programs budget, and your approval of this resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment? I might pause for a minute just for the purpose of everyone in the audience and those that are watching virtually. The board has an opportunity to review these resolutions in advance of the meeting, and the reason why there aren't lots of questions that come during the meeting, it's not that there aren't a lot of questions, it's just that we forward them originally or first, and then they're posted for the rest of us to all see. So it's not that we're just rubber stamping things without asking lots of questions. I felt it was really important to make that point. A lot goes into looking at these resolutions. Seeing that no one has a comment, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing no one was opposed, the motion carries. Next is Resolution 22-10-61, authorizing a contract with Peterson Power System for the purchase of 5 generators for various maintenance facilities. General Manager DeSue.
Thanks, President Simmons, members of the board. This contract will provide for the purchase of emergency power generators for 5 TriMet facilities: Center Street, Merlot, Ruby Junction North, Ruby Junction South, and El Monica. The need for these generators was determined following an assessment of the condition of TriMet existing emergency backup systems. The new generators will ensure that the emergency lighting, fire life safety, and related mission-critical systems have emergency backup power. They also will ensure our backup power systems meet the requirements of the National Fire Protection Association and the standards set forth in the National Electrical Code. For this contract, TriMet used Sourcewell to procure the generators. Sourcewell is a cooperative purchasing program for government and nonprofit agencies that provides better price than they might be able to obtain through individual open market solicitations. Sourcewell issued a formal competitive RFP and awarded the contract to Caterpillar. And Peterson is an authorized dealer of Caterpillar. The amount of TriMet contract with Peterson is $3 million for the generators and related parts, plus a 15% change order to address any potential supply chain issues. The funding is included in our FY23 capital budget program. Peterson Portland Metro office workforce includes about 70 people. Nearly 22% are minorities and 13% are female. The firm intends to subcontract with Team Electric, which has a local workforce of 42 people, 12% minorities, and 14% female. I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
It's in unison. Is it a double?
Oh, I didn't hear anybody else.
Oh,
I'll second.
okay. Thank you, Director Bauman, for the first and Director Lewis for the second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Director Bauman.
I'll just say for the record that a question that I raised before the meeting was whether, so this resolution rates to backup power for maintenance facilities, and I asked whether other facilities are being looked at for the same purpose for backup power, and the answer was yes. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Seeing no other comments, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing that we all agreed, motion carries. Next resolution, and this is, I have to pause and get my own thoughts here. You kind of get into a rote. I'm going to pause the TriMet Board of Directors meeting for our last resolution. The board also serves as the TriMet Contract Review Board. Resolution 22-10-62. I convene the TriMet Contract Review Board so we can consider authorizing an exemption from competitive bidding requirements for a contract for design build services for the Park Avenue Park and Ride Expansion Project. General Manager DeSue, your comments.
Thanks, President Simmons. Members of the board, with this resolution, we seek an exemption from the low bid process to utilize a best value request for proposal for the Park Avenue Park and Ride expansion project. The Park Avenue Park and Ride on the Max Orange Line was completed in late 2015. It was designed to allow for future expansion of 2 additional floors that were deferred during that project. Using savings from the Orange Line project, we now have FTA approval to move forward on adding those 2 floors. The board's approval of this resolution will allow TriMet to enter into a competitive RFP process that selects a design build contractor based on many factors, including price. This project includes specialized work with tight deadlines and a strict budget. Use of the competitive RFP will provide for considerations of factors such as skill and experience to manage its complexities. As such, the competitive RFP process was also used for the original construction of the Park and Ride, and the competitive RFP process helps support workforce diversity and subcontracting with small businesses. The cost of the work is included in the Engineering, Construction, and Planning Division's FY23 budget, and I recommend your approval.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion? Thank you, Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Lewis. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to make a comment? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't hear everyone. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. And now we return to the regular board meeting. We're no longer the contract review board. Next, we have an ordinance this morning regarding modifications to TriMet Code, Chapter 28. This chapter addresses the personal conduct of individuals who use the transit system. I'll ask General Counsel Devine to read the ordinance by title only.
Thank you, Ms. Board President. Ordinance number 369 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending TriMet Code, Chapter 28. This is the first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. Before we hold a public hearing, General Manager Dessou, do you have comments concerning this ordinance?
Thanks, President Simmons and members of the board. As General Counsel Devine said, this is the first reading of this ordinance. A second reading and a vote will occur at your December meeting that will take place. The ordinance will amend the TriMet Code to enhance security for our riders and our employees. It will authorize the general manager to impose increased penalties in the form of exclusions for prohibited conduct on the transit system. And I want to stress this, that this ordinance is about behavioral conduct, serious physical offenses against our riders, operators, and other frontline staff that violates the TriMet Code. It is not, and I repeat, it is not about fare evasion at all, period. Rather, the amendments will expand the code's definition for what types of offenses can lead to a long-term exclusion. In 2017, the Board of Directors voted unanimously to first implement long-term exclusions ranging from 6 months to a lifetime ban for serious physical offenses classified as a felony under state law. Earlier this year, the board voted unanimously to add spitting and propelling other bodily fluids on an employee to the serious offenses punishable by long-term exclusion. You can recall that you did so specifically to show support for our operators and hold people accountable for such unacceptable behavior. Now, with Ordinance 369, we ask for support to further protect our operators, other frontline staff, and our riders by expanding what falls under a serious physical offense. The ordinance would add attempted felonies and all Class A misdemeanors against a person, A Class A misdemeanor are the most serious category of misdemeanor, and it include crimes like assault for and bias crimes and hate crimes. The ordinance also simplifies the code by eliminating the distinction between the first and second offenses. Instead, it provides the general manager with the discretion to determine the scope of an exclusion based on the seriousness of the offense committed. It should be noted that only one permanent ban has ever been issued by TriMet, and that was imposed on a serious and chronic sexual offender. It was imposed on a serious and chronic sexual offender. Lastly, the ordinance would make eligible for long-term exclusions chronic offenders who have committed behavioral violations on the TriMet code 3 or more times within a 90-day period of time. 3 or more times within a 90-day period of time. Again, we're talking about behaviors such as being disruptive and threatening towards others. Again, this is not about fair evasion. And I want to repeat, not about fair evasion. Any person issued a long-term exclusion can seek a lateral review of that exclusion to show change behavior. Strengthening the TriMet code through this ordinance is just one piece of a larger strategy to increase security for riders and our employees and to improve the customer experience. You'll be hearing more from our Chief Operating Officer, Bonnie Todd, and also the Executive Director of Security and Safety, Andrew Wilson, in the security update that's coming during the board brief. President Simmons, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. Now we're going to hold a public hearing on Ordinance 369. And this is where,
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. General Manager, I just want to know if someone engages in this egregious behavior, how long is the process for actually coming to a conclusion in regards to them being either barred or exonerated?
So what I'm going to do, because this is legal, I'm going to bring our attorney up, Eric Van Hagen, because I want to make sure that the right information is provided to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board President Simmons and Director Edwards. The process typically will follow the criminal proceedings if there are criminal proceedings against an individual. There are sometimes restrictions on our ability to access evidence until the criminal proceeding is done. So it has typically sort of followed the conclusion of the criminal process.
Okay. I just have a concern in our system of government. We generally always judge people as being innocent until proven guilty. And I want to honor that, but at the same time, I get concerned about that kind of behavior not being addressed significantly for the drivers and the riders of our system as well. And that's the reason I asked that question, simply because there could be a time this person or individual may have committed some kind of egregious behavior, but allowed to still ride because there's been no decision or any reconciliation.
And I think that's something we're going to look at is, are there ways we can speed up that process after this, if this ordinance is passed and we had some additional candidates. You know, typically up till now, these have been people who have committed felonies. Oftentimes they're already incarcerated because they've committed a felony. And so they're not always out, depending on the situation. By including Class A misdemeanors, I think we need to look at that process and see if we can speed it up, particularly in cases where we have video evidence that is very conclusive and helpful, as opposed to having to rely on witness statements and kind of independently verify and gather information.
Thank you very much.
Before I go to public comment, are there any other comments from board members or questions that you have at this time? Director Way?
Thank you. I know that there's the financial or budget impact to this is none, but can you elaborate on that? I'm sort of assuming that maybe with these additional changes, we may need more legal counsel. We may need to have more processes in place to look at, you know, the implementation of this ordinance if it were to pass. I'm just, if you can elaborate on the no financial impact.
Sure. Yeah, I think I think what we envision is a work group is probably going to start meeting monthly to evaluate new candidates as they come in. This person might be eligible. Do they meet the criteria? Yes, we're going to issue a long-term exclusion. No, we're not. And we'll sort of track those through the process to conclusion, either issuance or non-issuance. And I think we'll certainly, this is a new area for us. So I think the anticipated no budget impact was based on being able to do that with current resources. But we'll certainly track that to make sure we can continue to fulfill that. I think it's going to be a relatively small number that ultimately get issued based on the case-by-case examination and the specific facts of the offenses that create eligibility.
Okay, so we'll go back and I will see if there's anyone here, either virtually or in person, who would like to come forward and speak to this particular ordinance. Seeing no one is here, I'll close the hearing, and that concludes our resolutions and ordinances for today. If there's no other business to come before the board, the meeting is adjourned. And we do have a retreat coming up on discussion on passenger fares scheduled for November 9th from 9 to 12:30. Our next board meeting is December 14th. And still today, we have 2 items on the agenda for a board briefing. But let's take a 5-minute break. I get in a zone. I need to look ahead to see what's coming up. Sam got a hold of me because he got a call from Kansas City. Opal has an attorney that called on behalf of Kansas City, on behalf of Opal, called Kansas City and had a meeting with them to discuss their fare range system. And the head, because that's where Sam was before, called to let him know that they were having that meeting. And he let me know. Yeah. So they're doing their due diligence. Yeah. Maybe that'll be cheaper than sending people to Kansas City.
Interested to know who the lawyer is, but there's probably not a record.
It's in a nonprofit here in yeah, and it's interesting. Her area of specialty is not this. I think it has to do with climate or something like that.
Civil rights or something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad actually that they're being.
Yeah.
So the briefings are.
Security, and you'll be definitely over here before 11:30.
Because it should show.
Well, and Sam took a bunch of stuff. He had a whole list of stuff he was gonna include, and he agreed that this, and I offered to him, if we needed to have, if things come up, because we're not meeting in November, let's call a special board meeting. indicated before, we have 2 board briefings today, and let's begin with an update on TriMet security efforts. General Manager Dessou.
I was bringing my computer up. Sorry about that. President Simmons, directors, the COVID-19 pandemic laid bare many issues in our community. We've seen an uptick in vandalism, criminal activity, assaults on our operators, on other staff. We've seen assaults on our customers, nuisance issues, including littering, an explosion in our houseless crisis. Right now, we've had mental health challenges that we're faced with, and then a skyrocketing use of illicit drugs that are out there. As our transit system moves from neighborhood to neighborhood, what is happening on our streets and the 3 counties we serve has spilled over onto the transit system. Through it all, TriMet continues our efforts to provide safety for our riders and our employees. But the mounting challenges made it clear that a new approach was needed. I'd like to bring in our Chief Operating Officer, Bonnie Todd, and our Safety and Security Executive Director, Andrew Wilson, who played a critical role, both of them, and they've spearheaded this new approach. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So good morning, President Simmons and members of the board. Back in January, when I first joined TriMet and moved to Portland, it was immediately clear to me that the city had changed from years earlier when I had spent time here. What I saw was a city and transit system now struggling with the issues we had usually attributed to much larger cities and transit systems, like those in Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. With many of those Portland City issues spilling over onto the TriMet transit system, despite the agency's best efforts, we took some key actions that are creating positive outcomes, but much, much more work remains to be done. In today's security update, Andrew and I will be talking about those actions, including the formation of an executive steering committee, working groups that have been established and their efforts, concurrent activities helping to improve security and improve the customer experience. Increases in presence on the system this year, including increases even since Andrew reported out to you about this matter in the August board meeting, and you'll hear more about the work of our safety response team as we're joined by a member or 2 of the team near the end of our presentation. So I think we need to go to slide 3. Thank you. So earlier in the year, under the direction of General Manager Dessou, I formed an executive steering committee on security. Along with Andrew and myself, General Counsel Shelley Devine, Human Resources and Labor Relations Executive Director Kim Sewell, and Public Affairs Executive Director J.C. Venata joined, and we worked together to identify the issues happening not only on our system, but in the wider community that were affecting our abilities and capabilities to provide service. It became a long list of items we identified, upwards of 60 to 80 items with varying levels of impact. At first glance, many of the things that we identified seemed out of our control, but on a deeper dive, we determined we could affect the impact of many of them. We also very quickly and kind of sadly realized that there was no one magic wand or silver bullet to fix everything and make immediate progress quickly. Rather, we needed to approach it like eating an elephant, literally one bite at a time. So we created problem statements that then turned into those specific issues I mentioned, which we then took and organized into 4 categories. We established working groups and assigned responsibility for each of the categories. The charge of these working groups was to analyze the issues to find the ways that provide more and most effective outcomes. The 4 working groups were and are system condition, support matters, passenger and public conduct, and external issues. We handpicked upwards of 40 employees from across the agency to participate in the working groups. Those we feel are well suited to lead others in addressing the issues, adding unique skills, knowledge, and out-of-the-box thinking to the working groups. The working groups are identifying short-term and long-term opportunities to pursue. So I'd like to focus in on each of them. Slide 5, please. So for system condition, this relates from our definition to the state of cleanliness and repair on our system, our vehicles, and our passenger facilities. As conditions in the community have changed with increases in activities like vandalism, we need to realign ourselves to be able to be more responsive to address damage, graffiti, litter, and biohazards that make the system look and feel dirty. That's not the impression we want our customers to walk away with. Being able to do more and more often without significant increases in resources, all while our employees are concurrently feeling less safe out there doing their work, presents big challenges that require unique solutions. By adjusting schedules, reevaluating and aligning processes, and providing additional training, we believe we can find ways to address issues more quickly, basically returning it to the desired condition faster to improve the customer experience. Slide 6. The next group is the Support Matters group, and this group focuses on better supporting employees through enhanced employee assistance with some other things thrown in. But from training to mental health support or just showing care and compassion, all of it has a major impact. We need to best support our employees, of course, because we value them and it's the right thing to do. But we also need to preserve our workforce and reduce attrition related to these new stressors faced by our frontline employees daily, and sometimes even repeatedly in a day. Particularly, we are asking ourselves and our employees how we can better support them with a focus on our operators and all of our frontline public-facing employees. Standard procedures across the board, as well as training, must be analyzed and adjusted with the current environment in mind, keeping the safety of our employees front of mind and top priority. We're also working specifically to find additional avenues for our employees, and I think we were a little surprised at how challenging this is for them to have greater outside and professional support specific to the types of situations that they are regularly encountering, many of which are scary, emotional, and often even traumatic. We want to have options for that support and have our employees get that support as quickly as possible. Next slide. With the external issues group's work, we've identified their need to focus on key relationships with our partners. What we want to do is improve those relationships for better coordination as we work through the new challenges on our system. Together, we can and have already been, as you'll hear later, pursuing coordinated approaches to address social issues, damage to our infrastructure, and even camps that block access to transit, as well as nuisance and security issues. We're also reviewing and updating our third-party agreements to make sure that the obligations of others are met so that we have all contributors working to keep our transit system safe and welcoming. Next slide. While we cannot change the wider challenges in the community when it comes to violence, houselessness, mental illness, and drug use, we can evaluate the TriMet code and how we communicate to better address passenger and public conduct on and near the system. And when I say communicate, I mean communicate our requirements to our passengers. The ordinance that was discussed earlier is one of the efforts identified that can hold people accountable for their behavior while riding TriMet. Communicating expectations, enforcing rules, and exploring technology that can help are all important in addressing this category of issues. All 4 working groups are currently tackling the low-hanging fruit opportunities that they've identified that can be pursued relatively quickly or easily that will have give us the biggest bang for the buck quickly and have positive outcomes while we also concurrently address the more complicated efforts. All of the efforts by the working groups are happening in parallel to our day-to-day security efforts, and this is important. I don't want you to think that we've just gone and talked about it for months and not done other things. We've actually done quite a bit of work, and we're making a lot of headway. So The next slide will show a list of some of those accomplishments, which include major cleanups we've done and maintained, some in coordination with the City of Portland, such as the work along our right-of-way in the Old Town area. We're in the early but promising stages of effectively starting up a 24-hour, what we call Rapid Response Center, providing quicker and more streamlined responses to security and facilities matters such as biohazards and vandalism. We envision that this will turn into a more formal and more sophisticated security response desk, as many larger transit agencies have. I'm very proud of the work done to date, the level of enthusiasm by the leaders on the Executive Steering Committee, the great response by the leaders of the working groups, and of course, the fantastic contributions of the working group members. It would take me hours to go through all of the work that we have done. In fact, we spent 5 or 6 hours going over it with General Manager Dessou. At the same time, the importance of these other efforts of many others across the agency to get critical initiatives going concurrently can't be overstated. So with that, I'm going to hand it off now to one of those leaders, Andrew Wilson, to share some of the successes thus far and talk specifically about some of these items.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Really appreciate Bonnie's leadership in this space, and as well as Sam just really kind of stepping in to support and help us deal with some of the unprecedented challenges that are out there. Also really appreciate the team's efforts in this approach, which has really allowed us to effectively tap into some very capable leaders here at TriMet to partner with us in some of these areas, and I think we're making some serious progress, which I get to share with you today. So, next slide, please. Bonnie alluded to this earlier. We have been piloting what we have called a rapid response center really since May, really trying to understand the kinds of ways we can support a 24-hour call center. This, as Bonnie talked about, is really related to responding as fast as possible to security and system condition type issues, things biohazards, that sort of thing. So we can really get after that stuff as soon as possible. This is a process that we are thinking will migrate now into a security desk, as Bonnie talked about, which will be connected to our OCC and actually have a 24-hour response for security-related issues so that we can support our OCC and support our operations. So this is an exciting new thing. I will say with this, they're using our powerful surveillance system too to identify and isolate what those issues are in real time so we can send the right response. And that's been really innovative as well. So next slide, please. Thanks, Kim. One of the things that we really identified early, and this is earlier this year here at Skidmore Fountain, some of these pictures, you can see the really terrible conditions that were out there. Just before Saturday market opened, we went down here as an executive team and actually scoped this area out and kind of thought about ways to approach this differently. Homeless encampment, houseless encampment sort of near and on our right-of-way is something that we have continued to experience alongside others in the community, and so we're trying to find ways to safely and reliably navigate through areas where there's close encampment like this. We redeveloped, I think, some very good partnerships with the City of Portland and others to get out here and make sure that this is safe and reliable. And you can go to the next slide, please. This is what Skidmore looks like now. I don't know if you've been through it recently. It's a continuing, issue. We do have to readdress things occasionally, but we've got good surveillance capability to understand if there's encampment that's happening, encroaching again near the right-of-way, and we address that. But these are some of those efforts. Another one, if we go to the next slide, please, is down in Old Town. Again, with tents this close to right-of-way, encampment this close to right-of-way, you might recall some of the discussions Mayor Wheeler had and ODOT had regarding how close encampments were to just traffic right-of-ways and streets and highways, and really trying to limit that to keep people safe. We did similar things, and in partnership with the City of Portland have been able to accomplish a lot as we develop those kind of external relationships. And you can see the next slide in Old Town. This is what a lot cleaner environment, not encampment encroaching on the right-of-way. So we're really proud of these efforts, and we're taking them to other areas in the city as well to ensure safe and reliable service. Next slide, please. This is Gateway East Precinct, and you are probably aware, but the Gateway neighborhood has been having some challenges recently. That spills onto the Gateway Transit Center, which is a key hub for our transit. So this has been an area that we've really honed in on. We moved our East Precinct with our Transit Police Division to an actual couple office spaces at the first floor of the Oregon clinic out there, which really well received by that group. They really opened that space up to us because they really wanted us to be there. We've been parking Multnomah County Sheriff's vehicles where that red line is. Sorry for the picture, but that's where they're parked normally. And that's just providing that visible presence by transit police in that area, which has been very well received so far. So this is just one of the strategies we identified through these groups. Next slide, please. This is also the Gateway Garage lighting upgrades that we focused in on. And some of these upgrades and this activity not only is informed by Executive Steering Committee, but also our Reimagine program too, as we try to think about areas that we can upgrade and make it safer for our folks. We'll go to the next slide. One of the things that the System Condition Group in particular honed in on early was the status of our trackway, particularly along the Banfield. There's been lots of litter and trash issues in the city of Portland and surrounding areas, as you guys are aware, but this was developing to a real issue along our trackway as well. And the team got together, worked through track access permitting issues, and really, did a phenomenal job out here of cleaning up our trackway recently, which also is not only is this aesthetically sort of nice to look at, but there's safety issues with that much trash in a right of way as well. And so one of the teams, the system condition team, did a really phenomenal job of cleaning this up. So if you look at the next slide, and if you ride out there right now, you're going to see a much, much different, cleaner presentation. And this is, we're setting up protocols to sustain that and keep it going. So very good work out there by the team. Next slide, please. So we're going to transition now out of kind of that slideshow, which hopefully you can kind of see the efforts that we're doing. Picture tells 1,000 words, and there's some good things. But I did want to transition because I talked to you guys about the increases in system presence that we're putting out there. And if you look at this trend line, even since we talked in August, we're adding a lot of presence out there, and we hear this consistently from the community. They'd like to see more personnel out there. You'll notice, and after I get to the next slide, you don't have to switch it yet, Kim, but oh, well, sorry, I set you up for that. So the blue line on that prior slide has held pretty consistent, and that is our TPD, Transit Police Division line. It's still at 18 staffing. You may recall we had a really supportive, good meeting with the Milwaukee City Council where they committed 2 additional officers. One will be here in December and another in June of next year, so that number will change there. But we, like the other transit police agency or police agencies in Oregon, are struggling to recruit, and that impacts our ability to actually bring transit police on board. On the positive side, out of Reimagine, we have been really developing a very good, robust, unarmed presence and different tools, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, which I've talked to you about a little bit before. But we're adding to those numbers, and those are really establishing a good presence out on the system and getting good feedback. But this is what our Transit Police Division is here to do, and this is an important role. We're going to continue to look for staffing options over this next year, which we do think there are other opportunities, but we'll proceed forward into our unarmed kind of group from there. Next slide, please. Thanks, Kim. So customer safety supervisors and officers, we more than doubled this team to 37. Those folks have been fully trained and are now on board and on the system. Now, customer safety supervisors work in conjunction with customer safety officers who are contracted security to provide safety for those supervisors as they do work out on the system. They are our code enforcement arm, so they do code enforcement, but they also do supportive work in providing customer service, helping us navigate through winter weather, other types of functions too. But this is an important group, and we do expect this group to increase as we continue to try to affect good positive behavior change on the system and also increase the presence on our system. And I'm showing you a picture of their uniform up there so you can kind of see the different uniforms of the group. When we get to the SRT, we actually have a live uniform here with us with Mo. So anyway, well, next slide, please. Transit security officers. This is an important group for us as well. You can see our staffing is at 96 currently. We were at 60 in June, so that tells you there's been a significant increase. So that's providing us a lot more capability as we do things like patrol Skidmore 24 hours a day and do different things that we're doing to really kind of establish presence capabilities. And next slide, please. So I'm thrilled to kind of talk with you today about our safety response team, and we actually have a couple members here to talk to you directly about the work they're doing. As you recall, this was a pilot program which began in September of last year. We've been tracking kind of performance and metrics related to their reaching out on the system and how often they're able to make contacts, et cetera. I'm really proud of this group. This group is best in class. You're seeing a lot of things in our area. Portland Street Response, Rider Ambassador Program on streetcar that are similar, but I'm biased, but I think this is best in class. These guys do great work, and I think you're going to see that as we bring folks up today to talk with you a little bit about how they're establishing presence. But just to kind of level set, we didn't have any of these professionals here last September, right? And now we have 48. That's a significant increase, and we expect that number to grow as well. They're doing excellent work, and I'll let them tell you about it here in a second. But next slide. I'm going to bring Beverly, who's a member of our team, up here in just a second. But before we do that, we're going to put on a video that we've used out in the community, show that to you, and then I'll have Beverly come up. Sure, you bet. I'll just say, I'll introduce Beverly Hermosillo, who's here with us, recently promoted, by the way. But you will see her on the video in uniform, but she's here in person anyway, so.
If I have to look at myself the whole time I do this, then I might not do as well as I had hoped. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for having me here today. I was hoping for you to see the video so you could learn a little bit more about what we do before we got into it, but that's fine. I'd like to take a moment to just tell you a little bit more about who I am. Okay, well maybe we can do it the right. Oh, there we are. I hope it was worth the wait. Personally, I just like watching it just because I'm familiar with the person out there, so having it play over and over again might be my worst nightmare, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Like I said, thank you so much for having me here today and for letting me have some time to speak with you, get to know you a little bit. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about who I am individually. My name is Beverly Hermosillo. I'm the program manager for the safety response team with PPI, and we're contracted through TriMet. I grew up in a small town in California. I was raised by my grandmother, who immigrated here at 18 from Guatemala. She made a lot of sacrifices to give me the life she felt like she thought I deserved, as well as instilled in me a deep sense of generosity and kindness. It's always been a dream of mine to have a career in which I can utilize those skills and abilities to better my community, as well as make her sacrifices worthwhile. Educationally, I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I'm currently obtaining my master's in social work here at our local PSU. I do plan to continue my education post-grad, but one thing at a time. I started at the SRT a little less than a year ago as a general member. I was a general member, moved to field supervisor, moved to shift supervisor, and then my most recent appointment of program manager. I am the only member to have performed every job within the SRT program, as well as have seen every transition, every change, and have been fortunate enough to be a part of all of the building blocks of what we've done here. In preparation for this meeting, I got with my team and we kind of discussed a few situations in which they'd like me to bring up here with you. We brainstormed for a little while, and by the end of our conversation, we had a whiteboard full of stories of interactions of people that we've spoken to and touched within the community, reasons why our work is meaningful to us. One in particular, there was a young man that we've been speaking to throughout the last couple of weeks on the system. When we initially encountered him, he wasn't very interested in getting to know who we were or what we did. But over time, due to our treatment and our work on community building, our relationship building within our community, he warmed up to us. We were able to have multiple discussions with him about his need and in ways that we could service him. And yesterday, he was able to call one of my members ready for assistance, and we were able to personally see that he was admitted to Hooper Detox for treatment. That is just one example of the maybe 50 we had on a board of the ways in which we've personally affected members of our community. There's a lot of work that goes into building a program like this, creating a new idea or tweaking things, discovering what works and what doesn't work. There are a lot of people who consider this program to be their baby, and I'm one of them, but it takes a village. I have a very diverse team from a variety of different backgrounds and experiences out there currently right now on the trains, speaking to members of our community about their needs and their issues. Like I said in the video, they're a team that is very dedicated to helping people and to becoming a valuable piece of this community. And 2 blocks down, there's an office with a whiteboard full of stories that act as a physical representation for us for dreams come true, including mine. So I'd really like to take some time and answer any questions that you might have about this place that's so meaningful to me and my team. This is Mo. Mo is in full uniform currently. I wanted to bring him along so that there's a physical representation of what we look like out there.
Open up for questions
Yeah.
for Beverly and others. We have 1 or 2 more slides that we'll wrap up with, but while Beverly's up here.
I have a couple of questions, not one on the safety response team, but a question as well. You said earlier that you do get cooperation out of the city of Portland and Peabody, I would imagine. My concern is also, do you get support out of the county on these adjacent properties that they're responsible for keeping cleaned up and that spill over onto TriMet property?
That's an excellent question. You know, we have connected with lots of different agencies to do this work. And Multnomah County is one of them. And we have really good partnerships with Multnomah County. Obviously, our contract with the Sheriff's Office has allowed us to explore some different opportunities to partner with them even more. But I will say that, you know, it's a difficult journey for them as well. And so establishing those partnerships, establishing momentum that we can do this in places like Skidmore, Old Town, and that's really helped, because I think it's kind of, you know, we're at the forefront of some very difficult things, and it's good to have peers and partners, and showing them what we need from them to operate transit safely and reliable is really important to the process, so that they can have a full understanding of what we need. And that's been something we've really worked on, particularly with the executive security meeting. But yes, we've had partnership with the county. Yeah.
Okay, and they are responsive?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. My question for the safety response team, I know that you're out there and you have all these challenges on the daily dealing with the public. My question is, are you getting the support that you need when you're not there? When you leave work, do you have support so you're not taking it home with you?
See if that works. Okay, cool. That's a fantastic question. As I said, there are a lot of pieces of creating this program and making this place function. One of the most important things that I feel we've created with my team is our team environment and our work environment with one another. We've really created an environment in which we lean on one another, we care for each other. I feel like it is a little organizational to say that we're a family, but I really feel that I feel that way, and a lot of my teammates feel that way. And so those conversations are taking place all of the time with one another. We've built an environment in which we are constantly checking in with each other. After an incident, we are checking in with each other. If we need to have a briefing on a situation, we do that at the end of the shift. If we need to discuss something that happened the day before, we do. We brainstorm ideas on how we can do things better each and every single day. In the moment, outside of the moment, I'm on call all of the time. When we have particularly stressful environments or situations that happen, I make it a point to reach out to my team throughout the weekend or throughout their days off. They don't want to answer, they don't have to, but just to check in on them to see if they're okay and if there's ways that we can support them. And so yes, we do have conversations continually about ways in which we can take care of ourselves outside of our workplace.
Do you have professional support as well in regards to counseling or if you need to talk to somebody individually?
We do have a behavioral health service opportunity or option with PPI. There's a phone number that individuals can call and get free counseling sessions a year. And then a lot of our members seek to find services outside of that or speak with a professional that they've spoken with in the past as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. I've had on the MAX trains, I've had a couple of opportunities to talk to folks on the safety response team, and I'm very impressed with your dedication to the community, so thank you. Talk about when you encounter someone who's being disruptive, kind of what is the protocol? What are the steps, and do you get the kind of support you need when you need to call in additional resources?
So one of my favorite things to say with my team is everything is situational. We assess the situation for what it is in the moment. We have a team lead there to make any critical decisions right away. But we've also trained our teams to kind of understand what their strengths are and what roles they'll play. In stressful situations, we do that pretty well. We typically will have a member who is a member or two who's going to go attempt to de-escalate this given situation through de-escalation strategies we've used both in our own experiences in life and education, as well as with the training strategies that we utilize within work. While another member works as an observant to kind of monitor the situation and ensure things aren't getting out of control, maybe pull those two back so that they're not so invested, they're not seeing everything. And then a member who is available to notify me or a supervisor and or radio into OCC if necessary. With everything new, our ability to learn how to utilize those communication skills has taken a little bit of time, but we've gotten much better. Not a lot of us come from an environment where we're using radios all of the time, so it did take a little bit. But since those have ironed out, we've had responses to the majority of our calls for assistance, yes. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why, if you've seen them out there, Director Bauman, too, we do send them in groups for that kind of reason as well. It's good to have groups of folks together. And so if you see a team of SRT, that's intentional.
Yeah, I will say that in the year that we've been going, something that I'm proud of is that we've only had one minor assault in the whole year that we've gone with all of our members. And I mean, it was very minor. So I know that is not very common with a lot of the work groups that work here for TriMet. So I think that our structure and organization has really been a part of the reason why we've been able to stay really safe.
I have another question, if you don't mind. I want to go to the issue of the Rapid Response Center that you're contemplating. So I know that at MAX stations, for example, there are cameras, but they are not monitored live, as I understand it. Is that going to be part of the Rapid Response
Absolutely.
Center?
Great question. Yes, Director Bauman. That's part of the intentionality of having a 24-hour response center, is that they can utilize our camera system in real time and monitor certain situations. It takes a lot of staffing to monitor. We have over 8,000 cameras, so it takes a lot of staffing to monitor all the cameras, but certain targeted areas where we've had issues, that would be part of that group's responsibilities daily, is to monitor those areas and report back into security. So
okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for this great presentation and overview. I know that you have maybe 2 more slides left, so I may be, asking some more questions in advance. But I do have a couple questions around the safety response team. Can you explain what the current shift times look like right now with your crew of 48, and also areas where you find that more coverage is needed than others? I'm just thinking about our entire system, and we have a large system of multiple counties and multiple jurisdictions we work in. So it sounded like maybe Portland or Multnomah County was where it was mostly concentrated. I don't want to assume that, so just wanted to hear from you if you're also getting spread out to other areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the team started with 12, which didn't leave us a lot of area to cover. We only had 1 shift in the beginning. We've grown to 48. We have 4 shifts technically now. We have a day shift from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., And then we have a swing shift from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And we service Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Saturdays, or what their schedules look like currently. We just rolled a Saturday shift a couple of weeks ago. So we're still ironing out how that looks. But overall, we've been doing it for a while, so very confident. During the day, we don't have set routes, given the fact that we come across incidences organically. There's no telling where I'm going to be needed or how I'm going to have to interact with this individual. I might be scheduled to go X and I have to go all the way to Y just because we ran into the situation. So what we do is the team leads, we leave it up to them every day, decide what section they're going to cover. We've separated from West Side, which is Goose Hollow, all the way to Hatfield. Our Central, which is all the way down from Milwaukee up to Expo Center, or I'm sorry, Delta Park area. And then we do East. Our East is our biggest section, which is from Lloyd Center to the airport gateway, or I'm sorry, Gresham and Clackamas. We try to have 2 teams in our East because it is the biggest field. We try to have 2 teams in our Central because those are the areas in which we see the most need for help up and down Delta Park, Rose Corridor, Skidmore Fountain, Pioneer Place, all the way down to Moody Station can be quite busy. So we try to do 2 and 2, and then we have a West Side, and we have the team stay from Goose Hollow all the way out to Hatfield, but it is a big area. We do quite a bit of interactions at BTC. Beaverton Transit Center is one of my favorite places to go because there are a large need of people and there aren't as many resources out in Beaverton. We've been lucky to utilize the resources that are available there and then as well direct people to other areas in which they can receive the assistance they need there.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up comment, and many thanks to Andrew and team for just setting up this program. I know we've never done it before. This is a pilot, and so we're hearing this in front of the board today. But do you have any plans to connect with other agencies? I'm just thinking about other counties to talk about the great work that y'all are doing.
So maybe I'll start and then you can.
Okay. Around the partnership that was talked about earlier.
Okay. Yes, is the answer, Director Way. And like I said, I really am proud of this team and the work that they've done. We also, something I didn't mention today, but we have a new position in our department that's called the Senior Director of Vulnerable Communities. This is Marissa Clark. You guys, Dr. Lewis knows Marissa Clark, but she's taken over a role. She actually had a Vulnerable Communities Summit that she chaired in Denver, Colorado a few months back, where we shared this type of information about the SRT and where we're headed as an organization. We have a lot of connectivity with other transit organizations who are going through similar things, and I think we're leading the pack on this, and so it's been a really good, innovative time here at TriMet in this space. We also communicate pretty regularly with local folks. We get requests often for SRT involvement and conversations with lots of different groups in the area, but one of the things that's kind of come up recently as the City of Portland and others are working on their issues is how can we support them, and that's difficult for us because we have limited resources and we're focused on transit, but we certainly share every piece of information we can gain or we've gained. What do you have?
Yeah. In addition, the program manager at TriMet, Thomas Hunt, he attends regular meetings with the county. I know that he is working on building more long-lasting relationships with community members. As far as on the ground floor, our team has the opportunity to speak with members of the community throughout the day, and so we do come in contact with a lot of people who work at a lot of different agencies, as well as our members have worked at these agencies previously. We've been able to develop personal relationships with individuals, program managers, program directors, and employees that have allowed us to maybe have a little more access to services than we would without that relationship building piece.
Dr. Lewis, did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you. And thank you, Beverly and Alan, for being here and taking time out of your day. Just a couple of logistic questions, and I think it would be helpful for the board to hear and those here with us today. Alan, I notice you're wearing an earwig, which is to a radio.
Board Member Mary Lewis, his name is...
Right.
So we did have, Alan was supposed to be here. It's Mo today, though.
It's Mo today? Apologies.
It's okay. It's not your fault.
So can you tell us where you are transmitting to, one or two reasons why you would use it, and is it going into the Rapid Response Center? I mean, who are you reporting to? That would be helpful. And then my second question is for Beverly. Can you share what type of incident reporting forms? I mean, if you do have an incident, I know you're reporting them. Does that information go to TriMet and to PPI? I mean, who is getting the data, and is it, uniform? Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that if Mo, you want to start.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me, I'm going to cross on the side. Thank you. Hello, my name is Mo. This earpiece calls directly to OCC from this module here. And we stay on specific air channels depending on the geographic location. So we'll go directly to OCC and we can request either transit police, security, or AMR, which is medical response, depending on the severity of the situation.
So that's part of your training to be able to do the call outs? Good, good.
Yes, absolutely. We do specific scenarios inside of the PPI office, and then we get extensive practice outside as well.
Good. Do you have DPSST numbers? Are you part of the academy? No?
I myself I have a DPSST card because I've done previous security work, but we do have DPSST classes that we take.
So Portland
Excellent.
Patrol has courses, but none of my members are certified due to our program. They don't come to us to be certified. If they were certified, it was previously. Those cards would run into expiration. We don't require them to be employed with us at all. Yeah, that's just from previous employment. As far as your next question in regards to, thank you, Mo. In regards to, I'm sorry, could you refresh my memory of your next
It was on reporting.
Yes.
Such as an incident, if he calls AMR or if he has to report. Do you complete a report, and is TriMet getting copies of that?
Yes, ma'am. So we do have a standard report. It includes date, time of incident, summary of incident, any personal information we receive about the individual, the members of the team present, and then it lists a brief description of the situation, sometimes brief, sometimes not so brief. We will list things such as a description of the individual that we were able to assist, which makes it more helpful for us to kind of pass it around with the teams and get a good idea of what this individual looks like in case we come in contact with them in the future. We list the breakdown of the situation, the ways in which our team handled the situation, and the ways in which the situation was resolved. Those then go directly to shift supervisors, and then very recently that was me, so I would review all of our reports, and then when they were ready to go, we'd sign them and send them off to our assistant and general managers of the safety response team at TriMet. So we carry a copy at PPI, and then TriMet has provided a copy of all the reports written, yes.
We're keeping a lot of data on contacts and what those contacts, how they originated, how they resolved, et cetera. And I'll share some of that data with you all, if that's all right, and you can kind of comb through it. But there's quite a bit. This is a pilot, so we really wanted to understand. As Beverly said earlier, too, we've been learning as we've gone along. So,
the question I have is, you're at 48. Is there a plan to increase the number? And if so, what is your optimum number of individuals based on the scope of our transit system?
I don't know that I have. It's a great question. Thanks, Director Simmons. I don't know that I have an optimum number yet. We're working towards it. It is going to increase. 48 is where we've just reached, but I think we're seeing that there's a need beyond that. Absolutely, right? So, if it's a doubling effect at least, it might be, but I think we're headed that direction, and I'm in conversations with folks internally, and we're looking and pursuing different funding options.
Yeah.
So.
Just from my experience when I've been, and you're mainly on Max, you're not on buses, or you're on buses as well?
So, as I stated previously, because of the small amount of members that we had to begin with, a lot of our time was previously spent on Max. The last, probably since about July, since we've expanded, we have really focused our efforts on reaching areas outside of just the general Max area, and we partner with TriMet every day to get a bus line and ride those buses. We'll focus on one line a day. The issue with buses is because we ride around in teams that are so large, we try to avoid overcrowding a bus for the passengers that are riding, and oftentimes you can get through talking to everybody on a bus fairly quickly. But we do have them pick a line, they'll ride it the whole day. It's out to Drattill and Morgan City and Forest Grove. So we've been concerting our efforts to get more coverage out in the outer skirts of the Tri-County area.
Yeah. I think one of the real benefits also is having a presence. On times prior to your program going forward, I would be on the system and I would see no one. And I would see things happening, and there was no way to really address it at that time. So anytime you have as many people interfacing within a system, a transit system, there's going to be a need to have somebody who can address the situations that happen. So thank you.
Yeah. A lot of our success is just being present and available for people in need. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
We are using a risk-based approach in terms of where people, what lines are the right lines to be on.
Yeah.
So this is part of a kind of a broader strategy in terms of how we establish presence out there, but SRT is a part of that as well. And, it's just, good things to sort of identify out there and issues to tackle.
Yeah. Director Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you to Bonnie and Andrew. You put together a great team, it appears, and I really appreciate the vetting process because it seems like your team reflects the attitude and the environment of TriMet, and that's what we want to make sure that we're doing as we do this. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Edwards. So I only have one more slide. And all it is similar information, but just to show you kind of where we're at from present, you can go ahead and this is just where we are in quarter 4 versus quarter 3. So you can see that 48 number is our SRT, the doubling effect that we've had related to our customer safety supervisors and additional security that's been brought on, which is both allied and CSOs for the customer safety team. So presence is coming, and we hear this ask from the community. I hear it a lot, and so we're getting there, but we have a lot of room to grow. So.
Help me to understand the difference between safety response and customer safety supervisors.
Yeah, so the customer safety supervisors are the blue shirts earlier that you saw.
The light blue shirts.
Yeah, which are code enforcement.
Okay.
That's their, I would say, I don't even want to say their primary function. That's one of their functions. They also do a lot of customer service outreach, event planning, help with winter weather, those types of things. But that's what the customer safety supervisors, they're a little bit more operational.
And who checks fares?
Customer safety supervisors.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think there's just a question slide, so we're in the questions if you have any more, or, yeah.
I would just like to clarify too, since we clarified that the safety officers check fare, safety response team does not do fare enforcement, code enforcement. Okay.
I was aware that you didn't do that, so I was just kind of curious because it wasn't called out in the slide as to where that happened. Well, thank you so very much. This is very, very helpful. I look forward to seeing everybody out on the system.
We look forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Beverly.
Mm-hmm. And we have one more briefing this morning. we'll get an update from Alan Lato, who is the Director of Business Planning and Asset Management, on the business plan. And I can tell you ahead of time, I've already sent my feedback to Alan.
Thank you.
I've worked on this.
Can't tell? Okay. How's that? That sounds better.
Welcome, Alan.
All right. Sorry, I was, of course, multitasking here. At this point, I need to ask you to shift gears a little bit and look forward and think about our strategic planning and our business plan. We are only about a third of the way through FY23, but it's already time to start thinking about the kind of high-level strategy for FY24. And so there are just 3 pages in the briefing materials that you got. And I want to briefly talk through those and then just give each of you an opportunity to give us a little bit of thinking about where you are seeing the priorities and the strategy for the upcoming year. There will, of course, as with every year, be a number of different touch points on the business plan, including a full draft at the January board meeting, full comment period during February, and then finalizing that business plan during March so that it aligns with our budget process as well. But this is where we start thinking forward. We're still paying attention, obviously, to what we're doing during FY23, and I continue to have check-in meetings with all of the responsible parties for all of the key strategic actions for that. But starting to look forward. And what I've provided for you is a lightly edited version of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges pages, as well as a rewritten strategic priorities. I'm going to give you just a couple of quick highlights on this, certainly not read the whole thing to you, and then see what kinds of feedback or thoughts you have for us to start thinking about as we go forward. So on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, and we do this to make sure that we are trying to be honest with ourselves and thinking about if we are being strategic, what do we need to focus on? Well, what are our strengths? What are our opportunities? What are our weaknesses? What are our challenges? So a number of things on here. The strengths include our employees who are working with our customers every single day. The HB 27 funding, which is part of what allows us to do the Forward Together work. Overall positive public support of TriMet and expanding service. Our ability to provide comprehensive information to customers with our new TriMet.org and with all of the staff that we've got out there on the system helping people move around. A little bit past halfway there, we again got good news on our financial ratings, which is very important for our ability to keep a strong bottom line so that we can provide all the service that we're trying to accomplish. We have the very well utilized HOP FastPass system and the fare capping and reduced fare, which allows folks to be able to take advantage of that in a pretty innovative way now. In terms of weaknesses, we're still working towards that consistent culture of safety. I think it grows all the time, but it's something you have to be consistent and persistent about. You all are very aware of our shortage of operators and other employees. You know that we've done a lot of recruiting and our training team, our training classes are starting to be full, and yet we have a long way to go. About halfway down, related to that, employee recruitment, engagement, and retention is always an issue. Right after that, making sure that everybody understands what customer service really means and what each of us can do regardless of what our role is whenever we're out on the system. And then down near the bottom, the capital asset maintenance and replacement needs. We are a 50-year-plus old agency with 30-year-plus old light rail facilities. And so things come up for replacement and maintenance all the time, and that will be a constant challenge. And then on the next page, on opportunities, the ability to add, this is one that I've added based on President Simmons's initial feedback, around our ability to improve travel time, increase frequency, improve connections, and increase available destinations, as we've been talking about under the Forward Together. Down in the middle, the expansion of bus-only lanes and other transit prioritization. I rode the 12 in today, and taking advantage of the bus lanes to and from is a wonderful experience for me. And certainly when it first opened, people all around me were commenting on how wonderful that was. Down near the bottom, regional and local growth policies continue to support transit. There's always more that can be done, and so we're always working with our regional partners to try and improve that. But it's still a fundamental part of our operating scenario. And then down at the bottom, replacing our oldest light rail vehicles is very important for reliability and our customer experience. And there are advances in battery and hydrogen technology that hopefully will continue to accelerate so that we can make our transition to zero-emission buses. Under challenges, the fundamental need to increase ridership based on a whole series of factors, such as changes in commuting behavior. So we can't do what we used to do. We used to be expert at that. Things have changed. That's part of our learning experience in Forward Together. The perceptions of safety and security, and that's part of why we just had the briefing we were talking about. And disruptive behavior on board related to that as well. And then a few down, enhancing safety of employees related to, for instance, the bus shields, and ongoing needs for asset maintenance and replacement, the same kind of thing I was talking about before. And then down near the bottom, maintaining consistent coordination with our local partners to help transit operate more efficiently and with less delay. We only have so much control, and working with partners is absolutely critical. That's just an overview. Of course, there are other items on there. I'm happy to take any comments or thoughts on any of those. But the last page, the strategic priorities, these are the same strategic priorities that we had in the current plan. But what I've tried to do here is sharpen them even more, simplify it. It's the kind of thing where you still can't quite get 6 all in your head all at once, but it's not a big table of lots of details. It's 6 simple statements. And those are to rebuild and earn new ridership, because we know commute behavior has changed. We will never get back 100% of everybody who was riding, because they no longer need to move all the time. They are teleworking, they are doing other things. The second, to enhance our focus on safety for riders and employees. The third, and I'm saying first, second, third, and I shouldn't really say that. They're not in priority order so much as all 6 of these are strategic priorities. Emphasize inclusion, diversity, equity, and access for riders, for employees, and for community members. Maintain and improve services through a focus on employees and employee experience. Seek more opportunities by earning trust with community and partnerships, and support ability to deliver on priorities through our financial stewardship and capacity. And that's how we're thinking about portraying our strategic priorities for this year, and helping us focus on those key strategic actions that are most important for us to put in and continue for the FY24 business plan. And with that, I would stop talking and ask for feedback, questions, input, guidance, whatever seems appropriate at this point.
Well, I really like what you did with the strategic priorities. I think that's really good. And for those who are here, I've worked on the business plan since probably year 1. And so usually what I do is I just send them to Alan directly. But I think these are the right strategic priorities. I like what you've done. Other than the 2 comments I gave on terms of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, I don't have anything additional to add at this time. But I'm more than willing to participate with you again in terms of kind of vetting some of the things that that emerge in terms of from the staff's perspective and the board's perspective on the next iteration of the business plan. I would welcome all of the board, those not here as well as those that are here. If you have thoughts, additional thoughts about over those that are here right now, please send them to Alan. And also, if you, it's not just the things here, the way they're worded. If they could be worded better, send those comments to Alan as well. Director Edwards.
Thank you. I do have one, and it's more speculative than anything else, Alan. It's the fact that we're losing the transportation chair, Peter DeFazio. And do you have any idea how that may impact us?
I probably am not the best person to answer that. I'm tracking it, of course, but it may be something we want to come back to. That is a big presence in the federal landscape for us, and that change will obviously bring changes. We've been through a lot of other changes in the past, so we'll simply have to navigate that.
Let me bring JC up. I know that the government affairs team have had this conversation as well. While he gets set up, I just want to let you know, Director Edwards and the board, I had the opportunity to fly to Washington, D.C. on his last Transportation and Infrastructure Committee meeting and represent TriMet, this region, the state of Oregon. I was extremely proud to be there, and it was a standing ovation for him as he hosted last.
Director Edwards, I would just note it's a huge loss for Oregon, and we're so grateful for all the work that DeFazio did for us. I would say that we're working with the rest of the congressional delegation to shore up those relationships and do whatever we can. I would also note that internally we're looking at how do we have him help us with some of the key pieces that we want to advance on in Washington. So while he might be retiring, we still want to keep him close because he has a lot of good connections and has been a champion of transit in Oregon. So,
thank you.
That concludes then our meeting today, and I wish you all a good afternoon and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, she let us know ahead of time that she had to be, she had